Hi guys, we're here and we didn't turn out okay. I've lost my voice, so bear with me today. I'm here with Neha Ruch. She is the founder of the first platform discussing women taking a career pause. And she's also written a book coming out January 14th called The Power Pause. Neha, I am so happy you're here. I've been waiting for this because we just have the best conversations and relate so much to each other. And I'm excited that we can share it with an audience.
So I'm obviously here for the free therapy and just to hang out with you because I've always called you my Energizer Bunny and I feel like I never get time with you. So I was like, I'll do our podcast with you. That's great.
I get it from you too.
So this morning, I'll start with this morning. Lyla, who is my newly 6-year-old, and is fierce and funny and charismatic
we didn't talk about how old your kids are.
So she's my younger one. I have an older one, Bodie, who will be 9 on New Year's Day. They have just a little bit more than 2.5 years between them, and he is wise, creative, a problem solver, all these amazing qualities, and yet there are I can't believe I'm saying this, but I have to remind myself to see all those wonderful things because I can get stuck on the little thing.
That don't seem little in the moment.
That don't seem little. So I'll give you the example. This morning, Lyla, who is just fierce. I mean, I want to be her when I grow up, but she has decided that she is going to only wear select clothes that she's approved of, that she has either worn before, and part of this is she
maybe
doesn't
the day before.
She has a sampling of clothes that she has decided won't attract too much attention because she doesn't want people to say, "Oh, Lyla, that's new." She doesn't want that.
How do you know that that's her?
Because she said that.
She's like, I don't want people to talk about.
Yeah, for the same reason she doesn't want a birthday party. She doesn't want people to sing her happy birthday. And doesn't want to be in the spotlight. But then she wore a hot pink Abercrombie and Fitch flare. I was like, that's new. But she, I don't know. That's part of her new rotation. So she intermittently, with no rhyme or reason, introduced something. And once she's worn it, it's part of her already worn rotation. But there's a number of things she has bought and asked to buy. She puts it on a wish list and her grandparents buy it or I buy it for her birthday, that she just remains untouched. So partly I look in her closet and I'm like, there's all these beautiful things that are going to waste and it's driving me absolutely bananas. And then the second part is why do you have to be the girl who everyone thinks just wears the same piece of clothing every day? And you know that this is because of my own crazy of people are going to judge you. They're not going to want to be friends with you because you wear the same thing. And then people are, which is no one's saying that.
Obviously, but
I
think
today I attempted letting it go.
But you have a third,
child?
No, a third. Sorry,
God
you
forbid.
said 2 reactions that come to mind when she's going through this. One is, why do you have to be the kid that is always wearing the same thing? 2 is, it's such a shame. We have all these other amazing things. But there's a third thing that you've talked about comes to mind. It's probably the more rational, less accessible mind in those moments. But what was that third thing that you should?
Oh, that I don't want you to develop sort of a compulsive disorder. Yeah, I don't want.
No, you shared this. You shared right before that this morning. You accessed that third option where you were just fine,
yeah. My rational option,
right? But also,
would be
maybe yes. If we didn't access
don't need
that.
to be a part of this. I can disconnect. She is fully capable of picking out which is available to her. I've structured a closet that she can access everything with a little stool. And then I remove myself from the equation and it's her job to get herself ready. And I remove myself from the power struggle. And whatever she eventually decides is her relationship with clothing, she can decide. I still think her relationship with clothing is not accurate.
Okay, so many things to unpack. I wanted you to for some reason I just decided that we're gonna hear it all and unpack it. Are you game?
Yeah, go for it.
We're gonna go with the order in which you laid it out. One is the whole kind of ethos of but you have all these amazing things in your closet. And I think that's a theme that happens throughout parenting. It's sort of like the guilt theme, even if you haven't said that to her. But similar, I just shared this morning with a reel when I took my girls to the concert. If at first they're not into it, you want to be like, but we came all the way here. We've been planning this, or I spent all this money. Like, not saying that I said any of that, but there's that sort of entire like guilt component, which growing up was like woven in a little bit for me. I'm not sure with you. You know, it can be like food. I cooked all this food, all of that. So I feel like there's that bucket there. And what makes you not say to her, or have you said to her, there's all these clothes here, and what do you feel like is behind? Have you said that to her? And is that coming from a place of like, you think that'll get her to wear them because it'll be enticing enough, or because she'll feel guilty? What do you think like would make you use that as the response?
I'm so sad to say that I do think it's a bit to inflict. At least I want to, like, my most critical self would say it's to inflict guilt. And just be like, and then but the more generous part of me is like, maybe it's because I want her just to be conscious of if she's choosing to fill her closet. And these are things that she's asked for. Then we need to be conscious of that. And so the way that I've tried to back into it is to say, well, we don't need to go to Greenstones again for you to pick things out to wear, because it feels like your closet is full right now and you have the options you want available. And that I can't tell if that is to initiate guilt or it's to more make her conscious of the reality of what she has available to her.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think there's times where it's like, oh, look at this. This is what you had just picked out. It's not necessarily to make them feel bad. It's to make them aware or remind them, oh, there was a time when you were into this and wearing it. And maybe you can remember what felt right about it then. And I think we can say that a little. I'm hoping that there's some like tangible tools that could come out of, you know, the different responses we can take when our kids are being so difficult in this way. And I don't even want to say difficult. I think it comes from a place of their own stuff, which we can get to. But when we're kind of having these little mini battles with them in the morning, or like it's not an appropriate thing to wear, saying something like, there's all these things in your closet. I wonder what doesn't feel right about any of them, or what felt right about this when you picked it out that doesn't feel right now. You know, we might learn something. So that was more, I think, also for me, that when I'm like leaning into, I want to make her feel guilt, or leaning into, I wonder if this would make her feel bad enough, or I'm bringing this up so she'll be aware, that there's ways to phrase it to kind of avoid the guilt evoking component.
I wonder too, just that curiosity around, because she did say about one sweatsuit that she had explicitly asked for. She was like, I loved it. I didn't realize it had a pocket on the tush. And I was like, what is wrong with the pocket on the tush? Like, what is wrong with that?
What do you think was wrong? Like, it was uncomfortable?
No, it's not uncomfortable. Do you think it's uncomfortable?
No, but like now sometimes... You know,
but what
sensitive.
Is that? And then she, you know, I feel like if there was some rhyme or reason.
Oh, you think it's just like talk?
Yeah, I think she does. She comes up with. Oh,
she's coming up with.
I think, and maybe that's flawed of me to believe that. But I do think for her, it is a pouch. She has figured out that this is something
that gets
that I care deeply about. And maybe she's calling me on my bullshit. And she's like, why do you care so much about this? I'm just going.
I mean, isn't it so amazing
to
how
mess
kids
this up for you?
Make us so self-aware? Like, yeah. So, right. Like maybe like pointing out to her all these things isn't going to get you anywhere, because she'll have a reason for why it made sense then and doesn't now, or why every single other item has an issue for her. And so then we get into the whole, what do you say when you're like dealing with the thoughts of that like second category of like, you wore that 2 days ago, or you only wear these same 5 things. Like, and in your mind, I'm not saying you say this, you're like, she's the girl that everyone's going to think wears the same thing, or that the parents think I haven't gotten more clothes for, or blah, blah, blah.
Which you know it's the latter, right? Like
that it's like the judgment will be on you.
Yes.
Right, because like in our minds, we're like, no parent is going to look at her and think like, oh, she must have given her mom a hard time. Like in our mind, we think the parent will be like, why is she wearing that again?
Yeah,
which is just so
which
crazy.
We should know better.
We should know better
because of
but
what
like
we do.
All these like adult imposed things impacting our parenting. It's just so ridiculous, right? Like if we didn't have that, I don't think I would care at all.
100%.
What she wore.
But this is what you and I said. I mean, last time when you and I were talking about this, you said that there was an Instagram account with the girl who wore the same dress to every wedding.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, oh my God, what an act of rebellion.
Yes. So it was like, I think it was the Dow Jones account. I'm not sure. But she was like, for a year, I had all these friends' weddings. I wore the same dress to every single one. So yes, that was empowering to me. And that's why I brought it up to you. But now that we're talking about it, I wonder if that grown up at each wedding was like, I'm doing this thing for Instagram, or if she gave explanations, if it was the same group of people. Like, I wonder.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I don't think she freely did it with no disclaimer.
Agenda.
Right. It's similar to like the memes of the mom walking behind the kid with the coat. Like I tried to put it on him. Like it's less about, yes, we care about our kid being cold, but also the like, people are going to look at me, be like, how did you let him out without a coat? Yeah, there's like such an adult like agenda there that we're so concerned about because do you really think like the kids in her class? No.
Right. And by the way, I mean, her class school picture day, she decided to give herself bangs. Not
she
like
real.
No, she she kept talking about side bangs.
I'm like, good for her.
I'd like done her hair and she kept being like, I had side bangs and I was like, what do you mean side bangs? Then I got the freaking picture and it was like she had pulled out all of her hair. Like 10 things I hate about you. What was her name? Julia Stiles. Yeah.
Oh
with
God,
the like hair pulled out. I was
like this tendril.
Yeah, but like pure.
I never understood that even as a kid.
It didn't look good then. It doesn't look good now. It definitely doesn't look good
There's
if you're
grown-ups that still do it. I never understood it.
Right, and she did.
And Tess, low pony with, Mom, don't put this behind my ear.
So maybe Lyla is cool and I am just holding her back.
Like there must be a thing there, but I feel like it's just, like if we didn't have the adult component. Oh, this is what I was also going to say that Tess, did I share about her picture day?
Yeah,
How
I think so.
Did a blowout and right before she went in, I was like, she put her hair up even after the blowout. I'm like, take your hair down. I shared this on one of the other episodes. And then she came home that day and was like, I kept my hair up. And I was so proud of her. Like, is there an element that like you're sort of like empowered by Lila's complete
so it's
disregard for anybody else but her own comfort?
I was thinking about where am I going with this? And I was realizing that I think this is the funny, more playful, more like admiring. Like I do think there's a part of me that's now, like I think that this has been how many weeks since we first talked about this, right? Like I think I was really hung up on it and then I was really proud of myself this morning for being like, no, this is on you. I'm going to let this go. But I do think that this is the like more cutesy example of the very deep part of this, which is that I want my kids to belong. Right. And and I know that the thing I've really struggled with for like 8 years is that my kids are slow to warm, both of them. I think Lila's naturally charismatic and sort of borrowed from Bodie, if I were to guess, like certain behaviors around social greetings and withholding those. And
has looked at how he behaves and sort of taken on some of those. And taken
it on, right? Because she's watching the power struggle between he and I around him being such a sweet, wonderful kid, but really having a hard time, partly because he didn't have strong speech and then the pandemic, and then he came back and he was in pre-K and he never felt confident answering adults' questions like in the wild, not in the school setting, but in the wild. And she watched the pressure we put on him to like meet that social expectation. And then it became her thing. And I think that I share the clothing thing because like maybe that's something I could control.
Right.
And maybe that's something where I can zhuzh them and put them in cute clothes and that will overcompensate for the fact that they don't say hello.
Right. Like there's like something, and we just talked about this before, and I want to talk about the slow to warm and all of that because we relate to each other on that too. But there's something about clothing that symbolizes so much more to us as adults, but also us as parents, like us as adults with our own clothing. Like we talked about this, is it being like our way of expressing ourselves, and then how we dress our kids is sort of like this way that we're expressing who we are as a parent, but also who our kid is, because they start to kind of contribute to that, you know, in terms of style too. And like how clothes can mean so much more to certain people and so much less to others. And just there's that element of, as we're raising kids, that when we're placing, like maybe for Lyla, it's like, I don't really care about clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Also the whole, like, I know I can get under my mom's skin, or maybe she cares so much about them just in the sense that we want them to care about them, how comfortable it is.
Yeah.
Like I've always said to my kids when they come out twirling and stuff, but what's the most important thing about what you wear, instead of like them trying to be like, I love how you look, you know?
Yeah.
It's bringing it back to them, but you look great, but what's the most important thing about what you're wearing? That it feels good on my body. Mm-hmm. And so when Nell is struggling with me about me being like, you should wear this or that, I can't be a hypocrite.
Yeah.
She said it's not comfortable. Hers is like, I think, comfort. A deeper thing.
Yeah.
She's like really making me self. And so I've like had to let go, or been like, let's just buy 10 of this pair of pants then. But then when those pair of pants come and it's not exactly the right one, then it's like, okay, this might not be, you know, you might be milking this whole what's comfortable on my body thing. But for Lyla, I'm curious to know, like, if you feel like it's a comfort thing, you said maybe a little bit of like rebellion thing, or like this is just what she doesn't want people to give her attention. Mm-hmm. Like maybe exploring that, like what feels
uncomfortable.
Have you talked about that with the birthdays? That whole birthday thing is a real thing. Like,
you know what
don't
I
sing
love
to
about
me.
her? And so it's funny because on birthdays, I didn't push her. Like she started saying, it was funny, she had the best, I was looking at videos. On her third birthday or fourth birthday, she had this like, it was just, you know, unicorns and all the things. It was her fourth birthday. And it was beautiful and every detail was so great and she had so much fun. And then there was a video of her being like, her face just like breaking down at the sort of astonishment of people singing to her and everyone looking at her. And that was it. And
fourth
she
birthday.
left.
How old is she now? This is
fourth birthday. She's 6. Last year, she very explicitly said, like, I just want a family birthday. I want a piñata and I want a unicorn cake. And that's it. And so we had a family birthday with extended family. This year, she was like, I want you and Daddy to pick me up. I want to go on the carousel with candy, and I want to take one of those like pedicabs home and have dinner with Bodie. And
oh my God,
and that's
what an amazing birthday.
I know. But she was like very specific. Oh, and she was like, and I want a rainbow bagel in the morning with like 3 candles, you know, and it was so explicit and I was so proud of her. So that's an example where like, that's so private to our family that I was like, good for you for knowing, like she's so self-aware to know it's like not fun for her.
But I'd argue that there's certain people who, similar to how you maybe feel about clothes, might feel a certain way about parties that are like feeling like, but don't you want to celebrate with your friends, or the guilt component? Aren't your friends going to be upset that like they don't get to celebrate with you? You know, like all these. So it's amazing that for you, the birthday thing is like,
no biggie.
You can see the like amazing quality about her in that, like knowing what she wants and wanting to do what feels most important.
It's true. So it's interesting because you feel it from like my mother-in-law called me and was like, but how will I give her present? Right. And I was like, I don't know, like at breakfast when we see you every day, like we see you every week, you don't need it to be. And she told Lyla, and Lyla was like, you don't need to get me anything. And
so what did she say back?
And so then Julia went to her sister-in-law and was like, should I get her something? She told me not to get her something.
Like, I wonder if like her clearly being someone who wants Lyla to celebrate, if that was like good for her.
Good for her. Yeah. And it's like connective.
That.
And so what I said to them is like, she's just not motivated by that. Like she loves people being around, but like not in that setting. And this isn't
not
the
where
year.
she's in the spotlight.
No, she just doesn't want that. And it's funny because it's the same for Halloween loves Halloween with our family.
Right.
Not.
It's like you can kind of think back and relate to that. I don't know if you can, to like certain moments where like, you know, when I would get a haircut, I was so nervous about going back to school. Also, my mom would like chop my hair. Like I would get these wildly different haircuts for like
brutal.
Yeah, instead of just like a trim. But similar, like there's times when Tess, like it motivates me to be on time because she doesn't want to walk into her class when everyone's already settled and it's like ever all eyes on her. You know? So there's that component of like the birthday party spotlight or the clothing spotlight that like you can kind of like appreciate when you think back to moments for yourself. But how did you, I feel like listeners would want to know, I do too, how did you react when like everyone was there to celebrate on her 4th birthday and she cried? Do you mind sharing?
You know, I think I just like sat with her and let it pass. And I think as everyone else, it was sort of a row. So everyone was sitting at like a head table. There was a lot of kids. There were 30 kids and a lot of grown-ups. And
so everyone finished the song.
Everyone finished the song. It wasn't like I was going to cut that off, but I sat with her and she did cry. And then
it was over.
She recovered and she ate her cake. And she didn't. It wasn't like she said goodbyes and thank you for coming to everyone. But I'd sort of, I mean, and this is that like she might have had fun in the moment and enjoyed it, but sort of like meeting the expectation of the birthday girl. And maybe that's it. I've never articulated it that way. But like that was not, she did not like feeling like she was performing for everyone.
Right. Or everyone looking at her. And
And she went home. She enjoyed all the presents. We have said to her, and my son said to her, my son is very toy motivated and very present motivated, loves a present, loves big birthdays. And he said to her, but Lyla, you won't get that many presents. Like, remember how? And she was like, I'm fine. Like, I don't want that. Like she would trade that off, which I think is such like a clear sense of self. And so interesting talking about that, like taking that same thing I'm so proud of and just applying it to like all the other areas, right? Like clothing, like why I can't like apply that same pride and clarity on where it's coming from.
Right, because it's a different like thing within you.
Mm-hmm. I don't have an attachment to birthday parties.
Right.
I do have an attachment
to
clothes because I do think women and clothing, I mean, we've seen it.
Yeah.
And maybe I just deeply feel like when I was little, I would have benefited from it. You know, I look at those clothes and I'm like, I want those clothes. Like, why aren't you wearing the freaking clothes? I want those.
Right. This is reminding me of like, so last night we went to the Kids Bop concert.
Yeah, right around
Tess
the corner from me.
Oh, yeah. With Tess's friends from first grade and all the moms. And with girls, there's like different dynamics, which is like, you know, another thing that we have to figure out, like what's bothering us and what's bothering them. I have to tell you, like, so there's dynamics within her group of friends where like one of them will gravitate to another and they're super close and, you know, they pair off and maybe that changes. And then when we're at something like the concert, you know, there was some like pairing and 2 girls next to Tess were pairing and not in a mean way where they were leaving her out. They were just clearly in their flow of like dancing giddiness and Tess was in her flow of dancey giddiness on her own. And in the moment, like there was some part of me that wanted to be like, don't you want to dance with them or like dance with them?
Yeah, just go do it.
Right, that wanted to. And I recognized it and I was like, she's not unhappy. And I'm actually like can't relate even like a morsel to her being happy next to these 2 girls doing what they're doing because I could never be. Like growing up, I was more concerned with the dynamics than probably the concert.
Yeah. And she was so happy, just enjoying
it. I wanted to, so there was like a video of her like dancing like in the seat and I at first wrote like my idol, but I'm like, nobody will understand why I'm saying that. So then I just wrote like her vibes.
Yeah.
But it was because like she was just so complete, like just enjoying this concert and dancing. And so I wonder like how much it takes for us to get to that. Like what journey did I go on mentally to like not, I don't know. And like how do you get there reflexively with everything? I feel like it's so important as they get older too to not put
our stuff. I mean, I find that to be the single hardest thing. And by the way, it's not just moms. Like I hear it with Dan, like with Boy.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know, around sports and like how much are we pushing versus just letting him enjoy it because he doesn't seem fazed, right? And I think that is like the deepest work right now. But it is personal work and not their work to do.
It's why the title of this is We Didn't Turn Out Okay. I feel like we need to figure out where we didn't, for lack of a better term, to not let it make our kids not okay in those areas. Like,
well, and not projecting our own, you know, Lyla, like I'll give you the other example of not wanting, you know, she really likes one-on-one play dates. But like group play dates, she literally said to me, I had that group play date once with these two girls. And remember, I really didn't like it. So I just don't want to do that again. And I was like, all right, well, it's going to be tricky in the long term, but here we go. And
was there part of you, or am I cutting you off, where you wanted to be like, but maybe you'll enjoy, like you don't want to close her off entirely from ever? You don't want to close her
off. And I think you know, she's closing her. She will say, like, she did not want to go. She was so excited about Halloween, but she didn't want to go to the Halloween kindergarten party. She wanted to be at Bodie's party, the 3rd grade party, where she could sit on her lap, and one friend, her friend Isabel, came and like hung out with her. She got her one friend Isabel to come over from the kindergarten party to come hang with her, and that felt safe to her. And I'm thinking like, oh, are you missing out on all these socializing opportunities where you're not connecting with the like rest of the kindergarten class? Well, the rest of the kindergarten class think we're not putting in as much effort. And like, she is doing just fine. Like I got, you know, her parent teacher conference. They were like, no, she's working on a puppet show with 5 girls and so it's this balance of like, letting them just be who they are. But I say this to you, but there are social expectations. And I always worry that if I don't push enough, one day it'll catch up.
Right.
And I think that's the tricky part for me, is we can do all of this inner work to let go of our stuff.
But then,
and part of me is worried, like, what if I do so much inner work? I'm like, do whatever. We're all good. You're good kids. And then one day, I guess you're going to say to me, like, then what? What's the worst thing that could happen?
Right. One day what?
One day what? Like she doesn't go to the, you know.
Right. Like then one day, well, part of me was thinking like she wanted to go to Bodie's with one friend because it's just like too many dynamics for her to like navigate. That is it one day she'll avoid those things because which I say like, you know, I know without calling them out, there's people in my life that I feel that when they know there's something coming up, they'll find every reason leading up of why they're not going to go. They'll be so nervous and then they get there and they've had like a wonderful time.
Yeah.
But is it that like she'll avoid so much? This is like, I'm not saying this is linear at all. I'm saying, is it that, you know, or is it just she'll get there? And she's at an age at 6 years old where it feels safer to navigate that at school, but when she doesn't have to, or not safer, when she has to navigate that, she does. But when she has you there, she'd rather not.
Yeah. And am I okay with that?
Right. Like,
or can I be okay with that for this year and then revisit when she's 7?
Or like see how it starts to develop. Yeah. Part of me is like, if Tess is fine, just like on her own, are people going to think she's like snobby and obnoxious and like, would rather not hang, you know, like what if one of her friends came over and wanted to dance with her? Would she be like, you know, not so friendly? Like you could always take it to the extreme. And I think the point is trying to approach these situations without our own agenda and baggage and with curiosity.
Yeah.
Like I wonder how that will, you know, develop like.
And a little bit of admiration, like trying to take
acceptance.
The good.
I think so much of how we parent is like, through this lens of like, oh my God, my kid's going to turn into X or Y. And this like fear of like, oh my God, she's, you know, going to never want to go to an event, you know, the more harrowing interpretation. And I think we have to not approach it that way. We have to let go of our own stuff, let go of our projections, and try to just like accept, you know, and be curious.
So Dan, I will share this. So we were at that Halloween thing, which is at Heckscher, which is the playground my kids go to. Yeah. And the third grade Halloween situation was sort of on the inner side of the park and the kindergarten was on the outside. And Lyla was just sitting on my lap. I had like plopped myself down on the like.
Wait, did she want to go because you were there?
No, we were all going to go to the kindergarten. We were just going to split up. Bodie was going to, he was fine. He could have gone to the third grade thing.
But she chose.
There was a whole, like if I were to walk you through the setting, we like came in the wrong way. So she thought it was going to be one thing and it wasn't. And then the way she visually interpreted the kindergarten gathering was much more and I heard it was a little overwhelming. The third grade gathering was like in a circle, like we've all been there. He's been there before. But the point of this is to say Bodie ran off. Like we didn't see him for an hour and a half. And he was with his friends in his costume and they were all having a blast. And the point of this is to say that once upon a time he was on my lap and we would leave with him in tears every time. And Dan looked at me and he was like, take the W, take the win. Like it all works out.
I love that, Dan.
And I know. And he was like, who cares if she sits? She's happy. She's on your lap. Everyone's staring at her and giving her candy because she's the only kindergartner here until Isabel came.
Right.
She's
Maybe
great.
It's that she like did want to like feel cool at the old, there's so many different things around that. Honoring who our kid is, allowing them to warm up in their own time, not pushing them to just perform and be and for the sake of other people. But then it's also like, all right, you got to say thank you to people.
And that's tricky.
Right.
Because if
like you have to say hi. Like you can't
So what do you do in that situation?
Doorman and like you can't be like
rude.
Even if it makes you uncomfortable. Like
so then what do I do?
Or like how can I help you not feel uncomfortable with something that we have to do? Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I feel like I'm still on such a journey with it. I think if we're like, now I'm probably always going to think of those like buckets. I've leaned into a lot of the guilt one because it's like, or I guess let's rephrase being aware.
Yeah.
Like I know that speaking out loud can feel hard when you don't know people. And so we're going to have to figure that out and maybe practice because when we leave someone's home, we do have to say thank you. Because otherwise they don't know that we're grateful that they've given us the meal or the party or this. Like I've tried because the good part is that when we really do need to push them, they're at an age where they can comprehend the things that I'm saying, right? Like, no, you're not saying this to a 2-year-old. There's no reason to because at that age, we can honor that it might feel hard. We can look up at the host and say, we're learning to say thank you or model, thank you so much, right, Bodie? We're so happy we were here. Like, we could do those things. You can't do that for a 6-year-old.
Or not, when I look at Bodie and I think, you'll get a kick out of this. I'm like, where did I go wrong? And chapter 4 is about like separating your success from your children.
Oh my God, yes.
Right, because especially when you take a career break or you shift your career to be mostly at home, it's so easy to be like, well, my success is my kid's behavior. And so when your kid stops meeting social expectations,
you blame yourself.
Can feel, so I have gone down the rabbit hole of being like looking at videos, being like, but he did talk. And like, I did, you can imagine me. I'm a performing artist. I just like walk around yelling like hellos as cheery as
emotional because
humanly
I think we
possible.
all, like when we stumble across stuff, we like sometimes take pieces of it, right? Like, yeah.
And for me, like all of this comes down to, and this is why like parenting is like leadership development. Like I need to do my own work around belonging, right? Because I need to accept the fact that my kids belong. Doesn't matter if they say hello or they don't say hello, they have their place in this earth. Like they have love it. Like they are safe. They are loved.
Well, I think what you and I do, like we have to drink the same Kool-Aid we're giving out. Like you've built what you've built saying that like everyone belongs, in terms of like how they're charting, parenthood and work and all of that. And similar to me, like this mom came up to me at the bathroom last night, like, oh my God, I know you. I have to share with you that we were one song into Kids Bop and my kid said she wanted to leave. But because of you, like, I'm honoring that. We didn't leave, but like, I understood. We went outside, instead of like, what's wrong with my child, right? Like and yet if when Tess one song into Taylor Swift said it, I didn't necessarily do that.
Yeah, you're like, no, I have to stay. This is a good song.
I'm like, oh no, we're here for 3.5 hours. No, we went outside after a little and I found out it was because I called out what the song was and she didn't want me to ruin it. Anyway, long story short, we are like building like the ability to be able to like accept all these different like shapes and forms of parenthood, of who our kids are. But it can feel so hard for us to do that. But like my point being that like, that this isn't a factor of like who you are as a parent. I mean, or like you would tell someone else.
I would tell someone else.
Right.
I will tell you that I do cite, and it's ironic because I will think about like, oh, how I had like such a weird relationship with help. And I'm always like, if I had a more traditional nanny or if I'd sent him to a daycare,
right.
would
so
he have been more social? So I do go into my blames her. Now, I think what I would say is like, but every decision you've made has led to now, and this is going to shape who you and your child are. And I think there's a little bit of trust, like in the same way as I tell people around work and family, like you have to trust the long game.
Yes.
And I think what I'm not doing is maybe focusing on enough of the like, we got to focus on all these other things that have made him creative and
I was hoping
curious.
You were gonna say
and
stuff
like
that.
I say about work and family, like you embrace what you're choosing and focusing on. You accept what you're letting go of for right now, and then you trust it's a long game. And like, could I apply the same to parenting and or to the children I have? Like, they are
That's
so
what
strong.
I meant. You're telling like moms all the time or parents all the time to trust that it's not like
it's not finite. It's not permanent.
Right. Oh yeah. Like Tess is, in a small reading group, and as I forget what we were doing, but I was like, we didn't read a single time all summer. Mm-hmm. I was busy or this or that. But then, the blame.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? We didn't, because I didn't want to be that, the small amount of time we had at night, I didn't want to spend it with something that she like struggled with or didn't want to do. She wanted to just like cuddle with me. Like, of course I'm not going to say no to that. And yes, there can be like a happy medium, which we're in now.
Same.
But like, instead of, there's always, it's not linear also is like also my thing of like, it's not because I didn't read to her, she's now in a reading group. Mm-hmm. Had I read with her, or because I didn't practice her reading, maybe she wouldn't be, maybe. But then I feel like I would have taken up time of like being like not what she needed. And I think similar to what you're thinking is like, yeah, you could have been like forcing him to do all these pleasantries with people he wasn't comfortable with and maybe be in a different place. But what other message would that send to him? Like, put aside whatever it is that you're dealing with for the sake of other people. Like, that's a much...
Yeah, I also think while you're saying that, I'm thinking, so the decision point is, right? Like I have an 8 going on 9-year-old, and I have decided this year just, it's obviously a very busy time. And I have just said, like, maybe this is the year to just keep things a little bit easier, right? In the home. Like, I'm not going to schlep this kid. I've done everything. We did social skills groups, which like weren't quite a fit. Yeah. And then what else did we do? We did therapy. We did speech. We did, and the point being, this year I was like, that's it. Like, let the kid enjoy his flag football, enjoy his soccer. He's in a reading group too. He has Hebrew school once a week.
What made you make that decision? You just decided, or did you feel like it was taking a toll or not really helping?
I didn't want to. I was done making it such a big deal. I didn't want him. I think he's at an age where you can go one of two ways. And confidence is such a big deal. And I didn't want him to internalize like there's something wrong. And I felt like we were getting there, where I had paid so much attention to it that I thought, okay, well, maybe now is the time that instead of therapizing him. Maybe I should therapize myself a little bit.
Yeah, that's like mind-blowing. Like I thought you just were like letting go of.
No, I don't. I'm
him,
not.
But
I
you
haven't
also
let go.
looped in
My own scaffolding because I have to face it, and I think when you're so focused on fixing your child,
you skip over.
You also set yourself up to always feel like they're failing or you're failing. Like we had a bar mitzvah, my nephew's bar mitzvah this past weekend. And of course, my Israeli aunt-in-law pulled me aside to be like, I just feel like your children aren't meeting social expectations. And I was like, I just feel like I'm very tired. But the point is like,
or I just feel like you should stay in your lane.
Yeah. Well, I did. I said, you don't know them. Like, I think they're thriving in so many settings and this isn't their setting.
I can't believe that would be the commentary.
And you can believe it because we've all experienced it in some form. And I think for the first time, I found myself looking at her being like, I'm actually like proud that they're sitting here. They're sitting on my lap. And she was like, well, I think if you let them off your lap, then they would flourish.
Now it's your fault.
And I was like, well, I don't feel like they would flourish. I feel like I'm okay with them on my lap. She was like, but don't you feel limited? And I was like, nope. I'm like really happy to enjoy the event with my kids on my lap. That's what lets us be able to enjoy it. And it's taken a lot of interest. Like if she had said that to me at the beginning of my parenting journey or even 5 years ago, I would have fallen apart. It's practice. But it's not his practice. Like for so long I was focused on his practice of being in those environments, showing up. And now I feel like for a little while,
like how
maybe it's
you
my
respond
practice
in front of him.
Yeah.
Maybe it's letting go and doing a little bit of the work, but maybe it's like both of you letting go, like letting go of him and then letting go of maybe it's therapy, but maybe it's also letting go of the little things for you too.
Yeah.
Like if the worst thing is that this aunt comes over to you and, as long as you aren't internalizing that,
I definitely cried for a while later to Dan. And was like, look what your family's done to me. But, beyond that. Yeah. But I think that there's this, I think the tension that exists is always, am I not doing enough to push them and one day it'll catch up? Or can I just enjoy them? And will they absorb that? And then they'll time will heal all things and they'll grow into who they're meant to be. And I just like the sound of the latter more for right now.
Absolutely. Yes.
But what would you do? What are you doing with Nell and Tess?
The short answer is I haven't fully figured it out yet because I'm also dealing with not exactly the same thing. I'm dealing with struggling with emotions around events.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, we have gone through, I feel the slow to warm journey. And so I should share that. But then we're also going through, which I'll save for another episode, some of these emotions that are impacting their social experiences. And just a small example of that, which I'm saving, is Nell's jealousy at other people's parties impacting the entire experience and me preparing her for that feeling and figuring out how we work through that. So there's that you could say that she's slow to warm, but no. She's just deeply jealous that she's not in the spotlight. So different episode. But for Nell and Tess with slow to warm up, I'd say more for Tess, it was preparing her for, these having realistic expectations for myself, number one, that she may go into this setting doing X, Y, and Z, but also letting her know what the setting would be like has helped her a lot. I will say that someone like Tess, and maybe I feel there's some similarities with Bodie, who's so aware, what has helped us so much is her seeing my confidence with who she is has helped her open up. She didn't have the added component of my mom is not proud of me or making explanations for me or sorry for who I am. When it was going into a place and maybe someone coming up to her and me not immediately pressuring her, but maybe kneeling down and whispering to her, I know when you're ready, you'll do X, Y, and Z. And not in a manipulative way, just I'm here. Or squeezing her hand, really just for me, it became about like, what does she need to fly?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like what I took on. And I will say that like she's there now. Like there was a point in the beginning of the year that it was a lot of preparing her for raising her hand because it was hard for her. And I'd say like a week in, we were doing a routine of like, okay, what are you going to talk about? Like when it's your turn to raise your hand, like, you know, let's practice. And she's like, no, mommy, I raise all my hand all the time now. And I was like, oh, like, so it's like, maybe it was because of the preparation, or maybe it was because I stopped being like, you have to raise your hand. Like everyone raises their, like, what's wrong with you type of like energy.
Yeah, they feel the what's wrong with you.
I know that we could talk about this for hours. Like I'd love to book you for like 18 more sessions.
Yeah, please.
But before we go, can you please talk about the power pause? Just give us like a snippet of what we can expect when we open this incredible creation from you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, so much of the work you do, I think, highlights just how much work parenthood is and what it can inspire. And so this book is for anyone who is considering or walking through a career pause or shift for family life. So many women are, 1 in 3 actually in America right now. And so the goal of this book is to walk women through the identity shift that happens, the financial conversations, the actual art of resignation, and then the day-to-day, starting with goal setting so that your kids don't become a metric of your success, and how to design day-to-days that help you grow too, and permission to get help like you and I always talk about. And then the last section is like unlocking the full possibility of it. I think you and I both are examples of this, where your network can actually thrive in motherhood, your creativity can thrive, but like actually how? And then ultimately being able to return to work of meaning on the other side when and if you're ready.
Oh my God. I'm so excited and embarrassed that like I didn't already know that this is like tactical tools and game plans and like executive functioning, you know, snippets for women going through like a pause after. Oh my God, I need it.
I know.
Still.
I mean, I went back and I did chapter 4 again, and chapter 5 again, where we're, you know, actually like tactically setting my goals and tactically setting up routines that help us thrive. And I feel like, you know, you live and breathe routines. Like, you know how much they can help us if we give ourselves permission to actually grow alongside our kids.
Yes.
Which happens in these conversations, but also like in our day-to-day.
Well, I can't wait. Thanks for coming on and telling us all the things that you're going through. I feel like it's super helpful for us to hear and talk about. And I can't wait to order the Power Pause January 14th. Thank you all for listening.